You finally did it. You logged into your banking app this morning, and there it is, a 5-figure balance, $10,000. For a moment, you feel like you can finally breathe. The stress that's been sitting on your chest for years suddenly lifts. You're no longer living paycheck to paycheck. You've got a cushion. You feel responsible, secure, and maybe even a little bit rich. But then a completely new feeling creeps in: anxiety. You look at that $10,000 and you realize you are absolutely terrified of losing it. You worked so hard to get here. You skipped the vacations, you cooked at home, you grinded for months or maybe years to see that number. So you do what you think is the smartest, safest thing possible. You do absolutely nothing. You leave it sitting right there in your checking or basic savings account. You tell yourself it's safe. You tell yourself you're protecting your hard work. But here is a truth that is going to make you very uncomfortable. Leaving that $10,000 sitting in cash is the exact reason you will never be wealthy. It's the reason you will stay stuck in the middle class forever. And it's the most common trap for first-time savers. My name is Julia, and here on Julia Invests, we don't just talk about saving money. We talk about how to actually build generational wealth. If you want to know the exact formula to turn your first $10,000 from a temporary security blanket into a permanent wealth-building machine, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. Here is the fundamental difference between saving and building wealth. Saving is playing defense. Building wealth is playing offense. When you hit your first $10,000, your brain tricks you. It tells you that you've crossed the finish line. But $10,000 isn't the finish line. It's barely the starting line.
I call this the comfort trap. You see, $10,000 is enough money to make you feel comfortable, but it's nowhere near enough money to make you free. If you quit your job today, that $10,000 might last you 3 months, maybe 4 if you live on ramen. That is not financial freedom. That is just a delayed panic attack. But because it feels like a lot of money, you become paralyzed. You treat that $10,000 like a rare museum artifact. You put it behind glass. You check your banking app 3 times a day just to look at it. You think you're being a financial genius because you aren't spending it. But while you're staring at it, the system is actively stealing from you. Let me explain how. It's called inflation, and it is the silent killer of the middle class. If you leave $10,000 in a traditional bank account, it might earn 0.01% interest. Meanwhile, the cost of groceries, rent, and gas is going up by 3%, 4%, or 5% a year. Your account balance still says $10,000, so your brain thinks you haven't lost anything. But the purchasing power of that money is dropping every single day. A year from now, that $10,000 will only buy what $9,500 buys today. 5 years from now, it might only have the buying power of $8,000. You are literally bleeding wealth while thinking you're playing it safe. The wealthy understand something that the middle class completely misses. Cash is not a wealth-building asset. Cash is a melting ice cube. If you hold on to it too long, it disappears. So what should you do instead? How do you protect your hard work while actually building wealth? You have to completely change how you view your money. Right now, you view your dollars as a safety net. You need to start viewing your dollars as employees. When you have $10,000 sitting in cash, you have 10,000 lazy employees sleeping in your bank account. They aren't doing any work. They aren't earning their keep. Your job, the moment you hit that 5-figure milestone, is to fire the lazy employees and put them to work. And you need to do this immediately, before fear takes over. Here's the exact step-by-step playbook you need to execute today. First, we are going to build your true defensive line. Take $3,000 of that $10,000. Move that $3,000 into a high-yield savings account, not your regular bank, a separate online bank, one that actually pays you 4% or 5% interest just for keeping it there. This $3,000 is your sleep at night fund. It's your emergency fund. And I need to be brutally clear about what an emergency actually is. An emergency is a medical bill. An emergency is your car breaking down so you can't get to work. An emergency is getting laid off. A friend's destination wedding is not an emergency. A new set of tires because you want bigger rims is not an emergency. Feeling stressed and needing a weekend getaway is not an emergency. You keep this $3,000 completely separate from your checking account. If it takes 2 days to transfer the money back to your main account, that is a good thing. That 2-day delay is the friction that stops you from making stupid emotional purchases. Now, why only $3,000? Why not keep the whole $10,000 in the high-yield savings account? Because while 4% or 5% interest is nice, it's only barely keeping up with inflation. It's preserving your money, but it's not multiplying it. This brings us to the remaining $7,000. This is your offensive line. This is the money that is going to buy your financial freedom. You are going to take that $7,000 and you are going to invest it. And I know for a lot of you, that word just triggered a massive wave of fear. You're thinking, what if the stock market crashes? What if I lose it all? My uncle lost his retirement in 2008. I'm not risking my $7,000. This is exactly the mindset that keeps the working class poor. You have been taught to fear the stock market. Meanwhile, the wealthy use the stock market as their personal ATM. You aren't going to gamble this money. You aren't going to day trade. You are going to open a brokerage account, or ideally a Roth IRA, and you are going to buy a broad market index fund, something like the S&P 500, which tracks the 500 largest companies in America. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you are buying a tiny piece of Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. You are letting the smartest CEOs in the world work for you. When they make a profit, you make a profit. It is the most passive, boring, and highly effective way to build wealth in human history. But here is what you need to mentally prepare for. Once you invest that $7,000, it is going to move. Next week, you might log in and see it's worth $6,800. Your heart will drop. You will feel sick. You will think, Julia was wrong. I made a huge mistake. You will be tempted to panic sell and put it back in your checking account. Do not touch it. Volatility is the price you pay for long-term growth. The market goes down, but historically, it always goes back up. If you leave that $7,000 alone in a decent index fund, what happens? Over time, it compounds. In 10 years, without you doing anything, it could be $14,000. In 20 years, it could be $28,000. In 30 years, that single $7,000 investment could grow to over $60,000. And that's if you never add another penny to it. But of course, we aren't going to stop there.
Because hitting $10,000 once is a nice achievement, but building a system that continuously generates $10,000 blocks is how you become rich. Motivation got you your first $10,000. You were hyped up, you watched YouTube videos, you aggressively cut expenses. But motivation fades. Willpower is a finite resource. If you rely on willpower to save your next $10,000, you will fail. You'll get tired, you'll get bored, you'll want to reward yourself. This is why wealthy people don't rely on motivation. They rely on automation. The very next time you get paid, you need to have automated transfer set up. Before you even see the money, before you can even think about spending it. $100 automatically routes to your high-yield savings account. $200 automatically routes to your investment account. You only live on what is left over. You pay your future self first, and you pay your current lifestyle second. When you do this, building wealth stops being a daily struggle. It becomes a background process. It happens while you sleep. It happens while you're at work. It happens while you're out with your friends. Now, let's talk about a massive mistake I see constantly, the I want to be an entrepreneur trap. People hit $10,000 and suddenly they think they are ready to build an empire. They take their only $10,000 and dump it into a risky business idea. They buy $10,000 worth of inventory for a dropshipping store, or they use it as a down payment for a rental property that needs repairs. They think they are making a power move. Listen to me very carefully. If you use your only $10,000 to start a risky venture, you are playing Russian roulette with your financial life. Because business takes time to make money. Real estate has hidden costs. If the roof leaks on that rental property and your bank account is at zero, what happens? You go into high-interest credit card debt. You panic. The stress destroys your decision-making abilities. You are forced to sell the property at a loss just to survive. You went from having a solid foundation to being completely underwater, all because you were impatient. Real wealth is built on a foundation of unshakable stability. You do not make massive risky moves when you only have $10,000 to your name. You build your emergency fund, you start your automated investing. You let your net worth grow to $20,000, then $50,000. When you have $50,000, taking a $10,000 risk on a business is a calculated move. When you only have $10,000, taking a $10,000 risk is just gambling. Patience is the ultimate filter. It filters out the people who want to look rich on Instagram from the people who actually want to be wealthy in real life. Let's talk about the tax advantage I mentioned earlier, because this is the closest thing to a legal cheat code in the financial system. When you invest your $7,000, don't just put it in a regular brokerage account. If you qualify, you need to open a Roth IRA. Why? Because the government taxes almost everything you do. They tax your income, they tax your property, they tax your purchases. And if you use a regular investment account, they will tax your profits. But a Roth IRA is a magical shield against taxes. You put your $7,000 in. Over the decades, it grows to $100,000. When you retire and pull that money out, you pay $0 in taxes on that massive gain. Nothing, not a single cent. The government cannot touch it. By making this one tiny administrative decision today, by checking the box that says Roth IRA instead of individual brokerage, you are literally saving your future self tens of thousands of dollars. But most people don't do it.
They say it sounds too complicated. They say they'll figure it out later. Later becomes next year. Next year becomes next decade. And suddenly they are 50 years old, wondering why they're still working 50 hours a week just to keep the lights on. Hitting your first $10,000 is a profound psychological milestone. It proves that you have discipline. It proves that you can delay gratification. But the skills that got you to $10,000 are not the skills that will get you to $100,000. Saving requires subtraction. You count expenses. You say no. Investing requires multiplication. You allocate capital. You take calculated risks. You have to evolve from being a saver to being an investor. And this transition is entirely mental. You have to let go of the fear of losing your $10,000. You have to accept that keeping it entirely in cash is a guaranteed loss. You have to trust the math. You have to trust the history of the stock market. You have to trust this system of automation. I want you to imagine two different versions of your future. In version A, you finish this video, you feel a little inspired, but then you do nothing. You leave your $10,000 in your checking account. A year goes by, you spend a little here, a little there, an unexpected bill pops up. Before you know it, that $10,000 is down to $4,000. You feel defeated. You feel like the system is rigged. You go back to your old habits, believing that wealth is only for the lucky. Now imagine version B. The moment this video ends, you take action. You open the high-yield savings account and move $3,000. You open the Roth IRA and invest $7,000 into an S&P 500 index fund. You set up an automatic transfer for your next paycheck. You close the laptop and you go live your life.
5 years from now, you look at your accounts. Because of your automated system and compound interest, your net worth isn't $10,000 anymore, it's $40,000. 10 years from now, it's $100,000. You aren't stressed about money. You weren't trapped in a job you hate. You have options. You have freedom. The crazy part is, the difference between version A and version B isn't how hard you work at your job. It isn't about getting a massive inheritance. It comes down to what you decide to do with your first $10,000 in the next 24 hours. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. 90% of the people watching this video will choose version A. They will let fear and procrastination win. They will hold on to their cash like a security blanket until inflation eats it alive. But I didn't make this video for the 90%. I made this video for the 10% who are actually serious about breaking the cycle, the ones who are tired of playing it safe and staying broke. You proved you can save the money. Now prove you have the courage to build the wealth. Split it up, automate it, invest it. Stop checking it every single day. Let the system work for you. Your future self is depending on the decision you make right now. Don't let them down. If this video completely changed how you look at your savings, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Julia Invests, and drop a comment below letting me know you are part of the 10% taking action today. I'll see you in the next one.